What is up, my guys? Are we recording? We are recording. What is up, my guys? Mr. Carmion Haunts here, and today we are back with Halloween Hangout with Mystic episode God knows what. Now, this is a pre-recorded video. I'm recording this on Wednesday. This is going to come out on the 13th, Friday the 13th, also known as the start of the 12 Days of Mysticmas, which is basically where I do horror and stuff like that, and I do, like, videos, like, little specials. All leading up to Christmas Day, where I do a special. It's going to be a good video. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but we will see. Now, will we? We will. Now, this is being pre-recorded on Wednesday the 11th, I think, and then this is going to be coming out on Friday the 13th. Also known as Day 1 of Mysticmas. And today we got a pretty good one for you. We got an old internet story. Well, not old, but like an older internet story. You guys probably heard of. And it's a creepypasta. We're reading a creepypasta today, so yay. Now, this video is not meant for kids whatsoever, because I'm reading today Squidward's Suicide. Alright, now let's get right into the story. I just want to start off by saying, if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There just isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005 for my degree in animation. It wasn't paid, of course. Most internships aren't. But it did have some perks beyond education. To adults, it might not seem like a big one, but most kids at the time would crap themselves over it. I'm not going to cuss, because I'm not that far. Now, since I work directly with the editors and animators, I got to be the new episodes days before they air. I'll get right to it without too many unnecessary details. They had very recently made the SpongeBob movie, and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity, so it took them longer to start up this season. But the delay lasted longer for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the Series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back for several months. Me and the other two interns were in the editing room, along with the lead animators and sound editors for the final cut. We received a copy that was supposed to be Fear the Krabby Patty, and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that this isn't final yet, the animators often put up mock title cards, sort of an inside joke for us, with phony, oftentimes lewd names, such as How Sex Doesn't Work instead of Rockabye Bivlev, I think. Bivalve. Boom. When SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scout. Nothing particularly funny, but work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card, Squidward's Suicide, we didn't think it more than a morbid joke. One of the interns did a small laugh at it. The happy-go-lucky music plays as normal. The story begins with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside, and Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down, as he has a concert tonight, and he needs to practice. SpongeBob says okay, and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. The bubble splash scene comes up, and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is where things begin to seem a little off. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. At this point, the sound is synced up with animation, so yes, that's not common. But when he stops playing, the sound finishes up as if the skip never happened. There's a slight murmuring in the crowd before they begin to boo him. Not normal cartoon booing that is common in this show, but you could very clearly hear the malice in it. Squidward's in full frame and looks visibly afraid. The shot goes toward the crowd, with SpongeBob in center frame. He too is booing, very much unlike him. That isn't the oddest thing, though. What is odd is that everyone has hyper-realistic eyes, very detailed. Clearly not shots of real people's eyes, but something a bit more real than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, since we weren't the writers. We didn't question its appeal to children yet. The shot goes to Squidward sitting on the edge of his bed, looking very forlorn. The view of his porthole window is of a night sky, so it isn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is that there is no sound. Literally no sound. Not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. It is as if the speakers were turned off, and though their status show them working perfectly. He just sat there, blinking, in the silence for about 30 seconds. Then he started to sob softly. He put his hands, tentacles, over his eyes and cried quietly for a full minute more. And all the while, a sound in the background began very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible. It sounded like a slight breeze through a forest. The screen slowly begins to zoom out in on his face. By slow, I mean it's only noticeable if you look at shots 10 seconds apart, side by side. The sobbing gets louder, more full of hurt and anger. The screen twitches a bit, as if it twists in on itself, for a split second, then back to normal. The wind through the trees sound gets slowly louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is the sound, and Squidward's sobbing sounded real, as if the sound were coming from the speakers, but as if the speakers were holes in the sound was coming through from the other side. As good as sound in the studio likes to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be that good to produce sound of that quality. Below the sound of the wind and sobbing, very faint, something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second, so you had a hard time pinning it. We watched this show twice, so pardon me if things sound a little too specific, but I've had time to think about them since then. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently, and something flashed over the screen, as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewound frame by frame. What we saw was horrible. It was a still photo of a dead kid. He couldn't have been more than 6. He was mangled and bloodied. One eye dangling over his upturned face. Popped. He was naked down to his underwear, his stomach crudely cut open to his entrails laying beside him. He was laying on some pavement that was probably a road. The most upsetting part was the shadow of the photographer. There was no crime tape, no evidence tags or markers, and the angle was completely off for a short designed to be evidence. It would seem the photographer was the person responsible for the child's death. We were mortified, but pressed on, hoping that it was just some type of sick joke. The screen flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing louder than before, and half body and frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done hyper-realistic style, looking as if you touched it and you got blood on your fingers. The wind sounded now as if that of a gale blowing through the forest. There were even snapping sounds of the branches. Laughing, a deep baritone, lasting at longer intervals and coming more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and slowed, a single frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were, but he knew he had to. This time the photo was what appeared to be a little girl, no older than the first child. She was laying on her stomach, her barrette in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was too popped out and popped, naked except for underpants. Her entrails were piled on top of her, above another crude cut along her back. Again the body was on the street, and the photographer's shadow was visible, very similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit, and one intern, the only female in the room, ran out. The show resumed. After 5 seconds, about 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward went silent. As did all sound, like it was when the scene started. He put his tentacles down, and his eyes were now done in hyper-realism, like the others were in the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot, and pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if he were watching the viewers. After about 10 seconds, he started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud, the most fear-inducing of all his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did the deep voice laughing. At this time, the still photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it on the 4th frame and backed up. This time, the photo was of a boy about the same age, but this time the scene was different. His entrails were just being pulled up from a stomach wound by a large hand, the right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling down it. The animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but this next one was different, but we could tell what. He went on to the next, same thing. Hold up. He went back to the first and played them quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animating and sound editors were gasping at the screen. The 5 frames were not as if they were 5 different photos. They were played out as if they were frames from a video. When we saw the hand slowly lift out the guts, we saw one of the kids' eyes focus on it, and we even saw 2 frames of the kid's eye beginning to blink. The lead editor told us to stop. He had to call in the creator to see this, Mr. Hill. He had to call in the creator to see this. God dang. Mr. Hillenberg arrived within about 15 minutes. He was confused as to why we called him down here, so the editor just continued the episode. Once a few frames were showing, all screaming, all sound began to stop. Squidward was just staring at the viewer, full frame on the face, for about 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out, and the deep voice said, "Do it," very loudly, and we see in Squidward's hands a shotgun. He immediately puts the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. Realistic blood and brain matter splatters the wall behind him in his bed, and he files it. Crap. I'm sorry, guys. Someone typed this weird, so they spelled flies like files. And he flies back with force. The last 5 seconds of the episode show his body on the bed, on his side, one eye dangling on what's left of his head above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg is obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the hell was going on. Most of the people left the room at this point, so it was just a handful of us to watch it again. Viewing the episode twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind and cause horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was the file was edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio to here. The CTO was called in to analyze what happened. The analysis of the file did show it was edited over by new material. However, the timestamp of it was a mere 24 seconds before we began viewing. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware as well as glitches, as if the timestamp had glitched and shown the wrong time, but everything checked out fine. We don't know what happened to this, and to this day nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came out of it. No child's scene was identified, and no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues in the photos. I had never believed in unexplainable phenomena before, but now I have something. But now that I have something happen, I can't prove anything about it beyond this anecdotal sense. And I think twice about things from now on. Alright, so since that story had bad grammar, I gotta say sorry. And also, this video is gonna be age restricted because I don't think I want some, 12-year-old stumbling across my video just to hear the horrifying story of a cartoon character shooting himself in the head that is loved by many people. And also, hearing about a kid with his guts ripped out. So, yeah, I mean, that's what's gonna happen in this video here. I'll see you guys in the next video, and probably this may be taken down by YouTube. See you guys!